Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this will be another little video installment about Gamemaster Law. And this is from the Rolemaster Standard System. Now, Rolemaster has had various incarnations, various editions. Rolemaster, this is RMSS is the abbreviation for this version of Rolemaster. There's Rolemaster Classic, which came on after this, and there's all kinds of incarnations of Rolemaster. But that's what's kind of nice about this book is that's beside the point. This book, the Gamemaster Law from Rolemaster Standard System, really takes a look at things just from the Game Master's perspective. It doesn't really matter what system you're playing. This book in particular is beneficial, I think, to any GM. In fact, I think some of the ways that it goes about doing things are different than the way I do it. But I think anyone that would have more prep work done, anyone that likes to have more stuff before they come to a game, would really benefit from looking at this book and finding it. It might even be expensive. I'm not even sure. I don't know how much of a print run they had. This version of ICE was when they still had the Middle-earth role-playing license, and that was sort of their heyday. They've kind of gone downhill since then with changing who owns it and so forth. But Gamemaster Law, why should you find this? Why should you pick it up? Maybe why should you find it on eBay? There are so many things in this book that they seem to do things differently, or classify things differently, or really take sort of a step back and just sort of look at the forest and see what's there and describe what's there. For instance, some of the ways that they describe role-playing and how they classify things are slightly different. I've never heard some of the terms before. Like actual scope. This is the level of intrigue or imagination going on in the background of the story, seen only by the GM and rarely seen by the players. And this is opposed by visual scope, which is basically what the players see. So it's sort of like what the players see the outside of the orange, where you're digging inside and all the juicy details, and that's what the actual scope is, the juice. Austerity is the degree which the game holds a character liable or accountable for his or her actions. If the danger of death is present, the character is in a more realistic and austere environment. And that's opposed by heroic, pulpy, so forth. Another term that they like to use, flag of disbelief. Details in the story or the presentation of the story that causes the players to fall out of character or distract them from the believability of the story. And I would, this would be something you definitely want to avoid as a GM, just things that make the character, the player, just kind of say, okay, that's kind of silly, man, that's not going to fit. Unless that's the kind of game you're actually going for. It describes GM style, active and passive, and I've never really heard GM styles described that way. Like active would be proactively moving the story forward through control techniques, manipulation of the setting, and so forth, cues to the players. And passive, which I think is more my style, is letting the players move the story at their own pace, interfering minimally with the pace, and then only through subtle techniques. So, active versus passive, and I thought that was an interesting sort of dichotomy, and sort of another way to describe GM style. Masking, this is inserting details into the scene and story to prevent significant details from standing out. So this is basically just covering up things, twisting them a little, making, sort of like a wolf in sheep's clothing idea where, it doesn't really look like it's supposed to look. It's, you're just trying to hide what's actually going on, keeping all the juicy details to yourself until it's time to reveal them. So you don't want to be obvious, and you want to be subtle when it comes to masking. You want to hide your true intent for the most part. And mood, this has been described before, but it's just like the feel of a setting, the feel of the game, the feel of a session. And that can be, somber, comedic, tragic, that sort of thing, sad. Presentation, and this kind of makes sense. This is just your at-the-table persona. This is the way you go about doing things, the way you go about role-playing your NPCs and the props and everything that you have at the table. This is opposed to prep work, where prep work is beforehand, presentation is at the table. What are you actually doing? What do the players actually see when the game is in progress? So the styles, techniques, and manner in which the story material is delivered. Like I said, just how you deliver your game. There's revelation. It's basically a smaller climax within the story used to reveal important story information. Just there's things that happen in the game that you sort of pull back the veil a little bit and see, let the characters see what's actually going on, behind the scenes a little bit. Story share. This is another way to describe spotlight time. Allowing your players and characters to get a little bit of piece of the story and to see what's going on. Their level of participation. And subjective perspective. This is one that I thought was kind of interesting. It's basically a technique that GM uses to provide a unique description of a scene for each player and each character. So what this makes me think of is a crime scene where you have witnesses. And you go around and ask all the witnesses what they saw, and they're going to tell you slightly different things. Some of them might even tell you vastly different things. So this is interesting, especially if you take in like spot checks or perception checks, whatever RPG you're using, where maybe a low spot check gives us different information, but not necessarily low and high. I think that's the standard way of doing it. This is taking a different angle where the location of the players and the location of the characters within the setting and the story and the scene might dictate what they can see and what they can't see. Maybe there's a big pile of crates that's between them and on the other side of it, but they can see over here in the bay, or they can see over here on the dock, and it just made me realize that the location of the characters is important. What they see can vary greatly depending on where they are, and I just thought that was interesting. This book is really packed with lots of information, so I'm probably going to do a series of videos just talking about the things that sort of stood out, things that really made me think. I kind of skipped over the things that I think we've kind of covered greatly in our videos, talking about RPGs and how to GM effectively. One of the things they mention is participation. It's the primary strength of role-playing. GMs should provide little, irresistible events that sweep the players up in the story. Basically, salting the players' information, here and there to require them to consult one another is a good participation technique. Basically, giving everyone a little piece of the puzzle and letting them talk it out and put the pieces together. Have them, put the puzzle together or the enigma or whatever they are they're working at. And especially if different characters have different skills and, different classes, whatever sort of system you're using, different techniques of going about things. Everyone can find, hopefully, some point in the story where they can participate, get involved, get animated, and really get into character and get loud sometimes, maybe even bang the table. Just don't be a wallflower, and unless you're like playing that strong silent type, which, depending on how you want to do things, if you're a veteran role player and that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. But for the most part, I think you should come up with some sort of concept that can interact with everyone else and, just propel the fun, even further. Personality. A GM must try to understand what type of people are playing at his table. His knowledge of their personality is important to his success in story design and presentation by avoiding what the players dislike and to improve your game. All of these videos we do on YouTube, you're watching one right now, these are all aimed at helping you. At times, I think maybe we're giving too much information where it's sort of an info dump and new GMs might be even more kind of scared. Tim says this and, Tetsubu says that and Brady says this and, I got to try to watch out for this that Aaron pointed out. And really, don't stress about it. This is a free service. We're just trying to help. We love the hobby, and take what we say with a grain of salt. And depending on who your group is, all of our wisdom and expertise, in quotes, can really be worth the hill of beans. It really depends on the group that is at the table in front of you, what their personalities are, what their likes and dislikes are, And that really should be your focus. Getting to know them as people, getting to know them how they play the game is very important. They are your target audience. This is why feedback from your group is important. Just paying attention to what's going on at the table. Sometimes I find that I'm improving so much that there's a term in this book called creative resources, where I only if you consider creative resources like 100%, maybe improv is like I'm going crazy on improv. So 70% of my effort, ability, whatever, is going into improv. So maybe I'm not listening as much, or maybe I'm not noticing the facial expressions on my players. And so that's the nice thing about GMing, is you really can improve continually your entire life. And if your group changes, you have to change with your group. You have to see what they like, and maybe your style doesn't fit their style, and that's something you need to talk about. But that's one thing that I think this book really emphasized, is the personality of the players, and they even go into more of a breakdown of what players are like, and how you can fit the game to basically their personalities, and how you can make it more fun for them. When most people discuss personality, they are referring to what they see a person do. This behavior is actually how a person responds to his environment. Why a person responds to his environment is also an element of his personality. So not only are you looking for their physical clues, it's good to try to find out what's behind the mask, what's behind their actions. Why do they like doing certain things? Maybe they have a really stressful job, so there are situations that they really don't dislike. They don't like to be put in stressful situations because that's what their life is. They want to escape that. They want to get away from that for 4 or 6 hours. So getting to know them as people, hanging out with them outside of the gaming group. For some of us, we might not be able to find the time for that, but it's a good way to learn who they are. And maybe some of us can't do that. Maybe we're so much different people that the only thing we have in common is gaming, and that's fine. Just as you game, try to understand who they are, and if you want to understand who they are, you can use that to increase their enjoyment of the game. There is a player's Zodiac in this game book that I think is very effective, very cool, and it's sort of, while it might be kind of stereotypical, it does hit the nail on the head for some players. Like, when I was reading through these descriptions, I thought, oh yeah, my one friend, he's totally a dragon, and this guy is totally a hound, and oh yeah, this guy's a bear, and some of the people I know are kind of combinations of two of them. But in the next video, I'm going to go into a little bit of the player Zodiac that this book describes, and I'll see you there.